Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 21st episode of Phenomenal Woman Wednesday. I am your host, Dr. Saran Nataki. Thank you for joining. Welcome to Power 365 Phenomenal Woman Wednesdays. This podcast will address issues ranging from what is a phenomenal woman? Are you enough? Community service, paying it forward, the manifestation of dreams with words and action, the power in being a woman, the men who support phenomenal women, fashion, and much more. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Phenomenal Woman Wednesday. So today I have a very special, amazing guest for you. Someone who's been a lifelong friend, someone I consider to be my sister, and just really has witnessed the soundtrack of my life and I hers, Mrs. Nekel Yvette Moore. Welcome for being.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Saran. This is phenomenal. Thank you so much. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for being here because I really want to be able to share you with the rest of the world. I think that, since the first day I met you, I think that you are really, really, and I mean this sincerely, not just because you're my friend, but I think that you are a phenomenal woman. And yeah.
Thank you so much. The same to you. Same
Yeah.
to you.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. So, Nekel is a wife, a wife of 18 years, a healthcare recruiter of 20 years. She's also a mother. She has a daughter and a son,
A grandmother.
and a grandmother to be, right? She's a baby on the way.
Grandmother of a 11-year-old
Oh, that's right.
grandson.
You have your grandson, and then you have another baby on the way.
We have another grandson, Elijah, that is on the way in August. Yeah.
Awesome. Wow,
Yeah.
that is exciting.
It's very exciting. It's a new chapter.
Definitely. For sure. So I'm just going to share a little bit about how we met with my listeners so they can have some context to who you are and who you are in my life. So Nekel and I met on the playground in kindergarten, first day of school, and we had we were both in the classroom of Mrs. Marion Hubbard, who was a phenomenal woman. We would both agree.
Phenomenal teacher, phenomenal woman.
Phenomenal woman. She was very committed to her craft, her career as a teacher. She really gave of herself and invested in her students, which is why we still call her name this many years later.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So we met there. We went through elementary school, became the best of friends. When we were younger, we would play over the phone, play house, play dolls. When we got a little older, we would spend every weekend together, every summer, every day of the summer together. And we traveled together, family reunions together. I mean, we were this is really my family. It's not really, not, a friend is too weak of a word.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
this is family. My parents considered you their daughter. My mother and father considered you their daughter. So friendship is too weak of a word.
Absolutely. And my nickname, the nickname that I had, do you remember the nickname
that my parents gave you?
Legs.
I don't. Oh, legs. Oh, legs. That's right.
Because I was super skinny with these long legs.
And long legs. That's right.
They would call me Legs. And
they sure would. I totally forgot about that. Wow.
And we got our first job at McDonald's. And I mean, we just started life together. We did everything together. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So the format of my show, I have several questions that I ask of you, and then we'll get into the more detailed questions. Because one thing that I didn't mention is Nekel is also a breast cancer survivor. So we definitely want to talk about that because that is just, I mean, the feather on the cap in terms of, being a phenomenal woman and having something to offer us as women. So definitely want to talk about that.
Okay.
So the first question is, what does it mean to be a phenomenal woman?
There's so many levels and layers to that, but I believe that to be a phenomenal woman, you have to be genuine. You have to be authentic. You have to stand in your truth, know who you are. A phenomenal woman is consistent. She loves hard. She's self-aware. She's resilient. She's not judgmental. But she's also vulnerable, and she's imperfect. She has self-esteem issues like the rest of us, but she is someone that loves hard, and she loves her family and her friends, and she's able to wear her emotions on her sleeves, and she's able to add value wherever she goes. That's what I think a phenomenal woman is.
Oh, that's perfect. And right in alignment with what Phenomenal Woman Wednesdays stands for: authenticity, and a woman who has lived life and has her experiences to offer, because there's no such thing as a perfect woman, first of all. It doesn't exist. But someone who's not ashamed to exhibit her imperfection and share. So that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So who would you say have been the phenomenal women in your life?
I've been blessed enough to have so many women in my village my entire life. I would probably start off with my girlfriends' mothers, who have been a part of my life, and I've taken a little bit of piece of all of them and included it into the map of my life, including your mom. I would say my girlfriends that I have really close relationships with, my cousins, my female cousins, my sisters, my sister-in-laws, my mother-in-law, who I've had a wonderful relationship for the last 20 years. But to top that list off, Saran, I would definitely say my aunts and my mother. My mother had 15 brothers and sisters. 8 of them were her sisters, and we just lost my last aunt, my mother baby sister, a few years ago, my Aunt Jewel, who I was very close to, who's phenomenal. And of course, I would top that list off with my mother, May Helen Martin, who was, she's the reason why I sit here. I've learned so much from her. Much of my life lesson, of course, I just started to appreciate as an adult mother and wife. Unfortunately, we don't appreciate the things that our mothers teach us until they're gone. Unfortunately, sometimes you sit back and you start to realize, wow, that's what my mother told me. That's what she said. That's what she meant. So I would definitely put her at the top of the list, and I miss her so much, and I've learned so much from her.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. And I just want to add what I remember about your mom that was so meaningful to me is that she would offer her time, and she would sit and talk and tell stories about her experiences and her life that were, very real. Like, she told the truth.
She told the truth.
Yeah, she was very honest.
Very honest. Very honest. And get people like that too much these days sometimes, But she really was about telling her truth. And I miss that. I really do miss that. So those were the women that really helped shape the person that you see right now.
Yeah, no, and just to kind of add to what you were saying about not really appreciating what those messages were,
Mm-hmm.
until they're gone. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I know that after my mother passed away, I was able to see her more clearly. It was so weird
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to see her a lot more clearly and have such a greater appreciation and
For
acknowledgement for how phenomenal she was. Like,
and for who
wow,
she was,
yeah,
who
yeah,
she really
her
was, not what
story
her
and what,
story.
yeah,
Right, yeah, yeah, who she really was, and
hmm
not something not through the eyes of a child
that's
or
right.
the eyes of a teenager, but in eyes of a mother, in eyes of someone that understands now what she was saying as a woman, as a grown woman. So
hmm
yeah, just more, I see my mother too much more clearer
Yeah.
now that she's gone, and I just wish I had that clarity. I started to get it as she got older. I
hmm
started to get clarity as she's got a little older and stuff. But I can definitely see her now, um, a lot more clear now that she's no longer with us. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. It's amazing how that happens.
Right,
I think it's
right.
by design, though. I don't think, I try not to be too hard on myself about that.
Me
But
too. Me
it's,
too.
it's, it's by design. No,
Yeah, yeah. But I do try to share with my other friends and girlfriends that are fortunate enough to still have their mothers around.
hmm
I do try to share it a little bit. I mean, they can't totally see it from my perspective, but I do try to share a few little things. I drop a few gems on them,
hmm
so I'm hoping that they will get a little bit of the clarity before it's too late. So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, great
So,
point.
right.
Because I can think of an example of, someone who was really frustrated about the level of involvement that her mother was having on like an event that she was doing. I think it was maybe, let's say like a baby shower.
Right.
And she was really frustrated and like, oh my gosh, she wants to do this and that and the other. And I just, I listened patiently, but I'm like, you you are fortunate enough to have her input. She's here with you. This is her moment. And you one day you'll be able to be the overbearing,
Right.
grandmother and
Right.
have the, whatever it is but allow her to have her moment. And she's earned it. She's earned
Right.
that opportunity. And
Right.
you are
Right.
blessed to have her
And
because
blessed to have it.
boy,
Hmm.
when that's no longer here, it's a different reality. It's
It's a
a
different
new
reality.
life.
Right. It's a new life. And
That's
it's
right.
yeah, absolutely.
hmm
Right.
So, what would you say are the characteristics that you've adopted from the phenomenal women that you mentioned?
Um, I've adopted many characteristics, as I said earlier, that I've taken a little bit of from each one of them. And my elders, as I would say, the way I love my family, you know, how hard I love, how I enjoy life to the fullest, and appreciate life to the fullest. My mother was the type that all the way up to the end, my mother passed away at 83, all the way up until 2 weeks before she fell and hit her head. That's what ultimately took her away from us. She was out getting her nails and feet and hair done and would never miss an appointment and loved the beach and loved to go to good restaurants and eat food, wonderful food, and um, laughed all the time, made jokes, constantly, laughed at
hmm
herself, you know,
hmm
um, and was proud. One of the things I definitely I can say I adapted from my mother, particularly, is she was so proud of her kids. She was truly proud of us. My mother had two children,
hmm
my brother and I, and just unconditionally proud of us. And I have taken that, uh, I've taken those characteristics from her. I'm extremely proud of my children, both of them. Um,
hmm
and there's nothing that they can do that can alter that. So um, I believe I've taken those characteristics from my elders. So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because parenting brings on an entirely different awareness of yourself. You learn
Mm-hmm.
so much of yourself through parenting, and there comes a point. It's harder to get to that place when you're still going through the various developmental stages up through teens, to young adulthood.
Right.
But once you've got a couple under your belt, you realize
Right.
that um, you know you don't. I think when you birth them and you look at them, they're yours,
Right.
but they're
Right.
never yours.
Right.
They're always their own person. They're
They're
always their
always
own
their
person.
own person.
And
Right.
so, and we feel that we know I mean, that's an entirely different podcast, but we feel we know the best for them, and we
Mm-hmm.
try, and certainly, while they're growing and don't have enough experience under their belt, but the more mature they become and the older they get, we really can't say that we know what's best for them.
Right. We can't.
And that's a lesson that we have to learn as women, as
Mm-hmm.
mothers. Like,
Right. Right.
they know what's
And
best for themselves. We
right.
we can't project that onto them. That's so
Yeah.
I like what you said
Yeah.
for that
Yeah.
reason.
You have to be able to trust that particularly if you're a mother of grown children, you have to be
Mm-hmm.
able to trust that you've instilled in them what they need to have, and that even though they might go from it,
Mm-hmm.
they'll come back to it. And that's what the word said as well too. So I believe that
Yeah.
you have to
Plant that
trust what
seed.
you plant that seed, and even though they might maybe stray from it for a certain period of time, they will come back to the basic
Mm-hmm.
learning. And so I've done that with the grown children I have, and I'm extremely proud of their decisions. So
Mm-hmm.
and I believe my mother was the same way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, up until the day that she passed, I could see it in her eyes that, she did well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She did well.
Yeah. She did. She sure did. So with that, I want to ask you, we talked about, your definition of what a phenomenal woman is. And we've also talked about how she's imperfect and, she adds value. And so what would you say as a phenomenal woman has been one of the most challenging experiences in your life? And how would you describe your journey toward riding the wave toward overcoming that challenge?
Wow. That's a great question. Um, I've had quite a few challenges up to this point, losing both parents, literally watching my mother take her last breath,
Mm-hmm.
literally. Um, very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the most challenging thing that I have gone through up until this point is being diagnosed last year. October of 2019, I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. Um, Triple negative is the most aggressive. And also, I've been diagnosed with what we call BRCA2,
Mm-hmm.
BRCA, BRCA2, which is a gene mutation, which
Mm-hmm.
basically means I have a cancer mutation.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a very high probability rate of cancer returning um, to either my ovaries or
Mm-hmm.
getting pancreatic cancer. So very serious thing that I've
Mm-hmm.
gone through,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm still kind of facing. But I would definitely say that is the most challenging thing. I can definitely say, and I can share with you and your listeners, that I am cancer free now.
Yeah, praise God for
Um,
that.
After
Yeah.
going through, yes, thank God, after going through months and months of chemotherapy, going through a double mastectomy and reconstruction. Um, I've done all of that from October to this day. Um, and I cannot tell you, if I didn't have the support system the care team I had, the family and friends, the faith, I would not have gone through what I just went through. Just being vulnerable to the process. When I first got the cancer diagnosis, the first day I received that call from my doctor, time stopped.
Yeah.
It just stopped for that particular minute. And I thought I was going to die. Mm-hmm. Just that's how quick it was. I just thought of death. I started thinking about my husband, my kids, what am I going to do, what I need to leave for them, how they're going to, function, But I realized, Saran, that it wasn't a death sentence. Mm-hmm. After I went through the woe is me, in a sense, the pity kind of party, I went through crying and thinking I was going to leave here. Mm-hmm. I put my head up. I started to do my own research. I started to be an advocate for myself. Mm-hmm. I started to reach out to other women mm-hmm. that have gone through the same thing. And I realized that, hey, I can be a survivor too. Mm-hmm. I can get through this thing. Mm-hmm. And today you're speaking to a survivor, someone that made it through the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. Yeah. And here we are, cancer's in remission. Mm-hmm. I had a full report done on me a few weeks ago, and I'm riding the wave of recovery.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's excellent news. And what I like about what you're saying is that, you're talking about, well, first of all, let's just go back. Yeah. Just praise God. I just, I want to give my audience an opportunity to give you the collective consciousness of praise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's important. Mm-hmm. So praise God. Now, what I like about what you said is that you're being totally transparent. That was your first thought. Mm-hmm. When we hear the word cancer, we automatically go there to death, because the reality is it's a potential outcome for some.
For many.
Yeah.
For many.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. that's a very real thought process to have to go through, and to face your own mortality, and to have to, and then in the face of that, pull up your big girl panties and say, I'm riding this, I'm fighting through this no matter what.
No matter what.
And I'm believing in my recovery. So that is mm-hmm. astounding to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. That is astounding to be able to do. I watched only one other person, and I shouldn't say just one other person, but one person up close and personal, where I watched, and it was my father who, I watched him just believe with, there was no other option for him.
No other option.
Mm-hmm. No and so I think that's what I've witnessed with you. So mm-hmm. So I have two examples in my life. So thank you for that.
Yeah. No, thank you. Absolutely. No other option. Mm-hmm. No other option but to live.
But to live. Mm-hmm. We didn't even entertain any other conversation. So
the one day,
yes.
That one day when the doctor called, I mm-hmm. entertained it. And then the next day I said, this is not going to take me out. Mm-hmm. I'm going to live. And mm-hmm. I wrote that all the way. I wrote it all the way.
Very important. I like, so it reminds me of one of my previous guests, Mrs. Ebony Shields, who she described a very similar experience when she got diagnosed, and what her husband told her was that, we're going to, you have your moment, you can cry, but we will not be vacationing here. And I really like that.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not going to wallow in this.
No.
We're not going to wallow in this. It's not productive. It's not productive at all,
But how do you do that? Like, so, some people, I mean, and not even with something as serious as a cancer diagnosis, but just other life challenges we face, and we say, okay, we're going to surrender it over. And so often we surrender, but then we come back and pick it back up. We gotta be doing, okay, today, for real, I'm surrendering. You surrender it, and then you're like, okay, I got to pick this back up. So what was your key? If you are able to describe it, and if not, if that's okay too. But what would you say is the secret to being able to truly surrender it?
Well, I gave myself permission to pick it up sometime. I gave myself the permission to wallow sometime, to cry, to go there. I didn't beat myself up, when I did, go there. But I didn't stay there,
Yeah.
That's how I handled it. I didn't stay there. I would go there. It's normal. It's human.
Yeah.
To pick it up and to befriend it for a minute, and then I would let it go because I had work to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mind, body, and soul connection, right? So
mind, body, and soul connection. Yeah.
Everything has to be in alignment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you had to identify the top 4 characteristics that someone needs to adopt when they're facing a major challenge, what would you say those are?
4. Let's see. Focus. I would definitely say when you're facing a challenge, you need to focus, because just as I mentioned, there's work to be done. I had to focus when I was dealing with the cancer diagnosis, because I had things to be done. I had research to do. I had people to meet. I had conversations to have. I had things to read. So I needed to focus. I would also say you need to adapt to the new norm. For me, it was, taking a leave from my career for a while, being at home, adapting to losing my hair, adapting to being, sick a lot, just adapting to, going to the doctor 2 or 3 times a week, just adapting to the new norm of my challenge. I think that you would need to also, have a positive outlook. If we are just, what we're talking about previously, you have to be positive for the most part.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it.
For the most part. And then gratitude. For me, I was always every morning waking up was a new day, a new beginning, a new time. Time has one direction, and it's forward, right? So you can't get anything back from yesterday. So I would appreciate today, every day while I had it, so I think that's a huge piece. And then I think I would throw a bonus one on. I know you said 4, but if I could just throw a bonus one, I would say being calm when you're facing a challenge, when you're facing something in anything that's challenging. I think that being able to be calm and be in the moment is something that would be very helpful to have. It definitely helped me in my challenge. So
yeah. And so when you say gratitude, like, it's become more, I personally think that our universe is going through a process of ascension. Like, we're really becoming more spiritually aware of who we actually are, you know, and so we're learning more about the power of not just our words, but our like personal vibration, like our energy that we put out. So when we're practicing gratitude, right? So when we're practicing gratitude, we're attracting more positivity to us. And I think I really like that you mentioned that because, and you mentioned the fact that time moves forward. So this is where I'm going with this. So when you're having your moment and you're in the valley of a challenge, it's hard sometimes to really be grateful. It can be very difficult, but there's always something. There's always something to be grateful for. Always. And if nothing else, you can be grateful for the breath that you have.
That the breath that you take.
The breath that you take.
Absolutely. I was losing hair, chunks of hair, sitting on my couch, just coming from chemo, just sick, not feeling well at all. And my husband made me laugh. It was something, I can't remember what it was, but he made a joke off or something. And I just started laughing. It was so funny to me. And I'm sitting there with chunks of hair, literally, as I rubbed my head, it was coming out in my hand. And I was grateful that he was here and I was able to laugh at that joke, you know, and that basic, you know, it was really that basics around that. I'm going through very aggressive cancer, losing my hair, which I love my hair, like we all do, right? And my husband makes me laugh off of a silly joke. And I was just very grateful for that time to be spending with him. And it's just amazing how you can be going through something so traumatic at that time, but you're still so grateful for something like that, you know? And that's real. Been the story. That's been my story. Yeah.
And then let's just be real, like just being grateful for having a supportive husband.
Very supportive.
You know, it's unfortunately, or fortunate. I mean, I don't know. I mean, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's on a different road. And just if you don't have a husband, doesn't mean that you're not great or have a wonderful life. Right. But you have one. And and you found yourself in this situation and he was there to support you. You know, how beautiful is that? You know, that's when we think about marriage, when we stand there at the altar and we say, I do, we're thinking about all of the great things that are before us, right? We're thinking all the great things we're doing until death do us part, through sickness and health. We say the words, but we never really think we're going to realize those words, you know, and it's sickness and health, not just your own, but your parents, you know, your, some have children they have to nurse through sickness and even ourselves in your case. And at some point, you know, we're mortal beings. At some points we all are going to face some type of health challenge. And I say that because we're all at some point going to leave. So that's a challenge if you're not here. We're all going to have it. So, yeah, so that I think that, you know, just having the ability. So to me, that is the ultimate key, having gratitude in that moment, because time is moving forward and you only have right now.
You only have right now.
You only have right
absolutely.
now.
Absolutely.
You know, and just to kind of add some additional context. So like when my father was dealing with his cancer diagnosis, my father was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and he experienced full remission for up until his death. It never returned. And that was for a 6-year period. But at the onset of his diagnosis, we're all and, we're coming together, we're trying to gather, a part of what happened with him. He had a metastasis to his brain. He had to have brain surgery. And so it left him a little different initially. Over time, he began to be more like himself. He was able to, he had cognitive, ability, but his verbal expression was a little different. So when we got together as a family, we were just happy to have him with us and be with them and everything. And what happened was my 38-year-old cousin ended up having a massive stroke and he passed away and my father lived.
Right. Right. I
So
remember.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right. So
Right.
therefore it's like you really do only have right now. You don't
Right in this
know.
moment.
Yeah, you
Right.
don't know what's happening. So if
Right.
nothing else, I think that's probably for me the most resounding thing that you've said is
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have gratitude for the moment you have right now. That's amazing.
Absolutely. The time, like I said, time has one direction
Mm-hmm.
and it's forward. And so, this should teach us a great deal, putting off conversations until later. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Praying for someone, do it right now.
Yeah.
Playing a game with your children right now. Don't say, babe, we'll play tomorrow. Do it
Mm-hmm.
right now. That's what truly I've always been in that space, even before the diagnosis. But
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you, after the cancer diagnosis, I'm on full throttle with that.
Mm-hmm.
Full throttle. Like
Mm-hmm.
I try not to put off. Um, of course it happens because life has to, continue
Yeah.
with certain, things. But I really do try to do the things that I should do right now. Um, and it's gonna be really ingrained into the rest of my life. As long as God see fit that I stay on earth, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
continue trying to make that call, see that person, have
Yeah.
those conversations,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
spend that time with my children.
Mm-hmm.
Not decline that call that comes through. Hit the accept button. Hey,
Yeah.
how are you? Um, and so that's I'm on full throttle. Like I said, I've always tried to stay in that space, but I'm really, after watching my mother take her last breath, after having this cancer, it's something that I hold really true and dear now as I move forward. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So that segues perfectly into my next question. So how important is friendship?
Friendship is very high on my list. I sometimes brag about this because it's rare. But I am fortunate and blessed to have at least 5 to 6 really close girlfriends. And these are women that I've been friends with, like you mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
when we first started. I have friends that I've been, like yourself, friends with since kindergarten and third
Mm-hmm.
grade, and fifth grade, and teenage, 15 years old,
Yeah.
really close friends, not just associates,
Mm-hmm.
but these are women that I talk to 2-3 times a week. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we might not see each other all the time, but we talk. We've
Mm-hmm.
been together through um, marriage, weddings, through the birth of our children,
Divorce.
divorce, the
Yeah.
death of our parents,
Yeah.
you know, cancer, graduations. I mean, I'm so thankful for that. I cannot scream it louder. I'm just so thankful for that because I talk to other women, young women, and I ask about friendship and they have no friends. You know, these are
Yeah.
really close friends. They're not even just friends. They're family to me.
Right.
I've watched their children grow up. They've watched my children grow up. So it's truly, as long as friendship is done with respect and it's done with unconditional love, it's right there at the top of my list. It's a go-to for me. Um, And so again, these women, including yourself, are more than friends. They're family. And I wouldn't be here without them. I've taken everything that I've learned. I've taken everything um, that I've learned from them, and I've used it in my everyday life. So, including yourself. And so it's just, it's very, even when you don't know that you mean so much to a person, because there's times that you might not see them, or you might
Mm-hmm.
not have a chance to say the things that you want to say. um, I hold my friendships so dearly in my heart, and I brag about it to coworkers, to people I
Yeah.
meet on the street. I tell people, I have 5 friends, really close girlfriends I'm really close to, that I've been friends with since kindergarten or since 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people that I don't know about this, because I
Mm-hmm.
believe it's a phenomenon. I think it's different. I don't know if you've talked to other women, and young women in particular, and they don't have friends. They don't have long lasting friendships. And so I really value the friendships that I have.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that what happens is the values have shifted, over
Mm-hmm.
time, and
Absolutely.
our level of patience has
Mm-hmm.
changed with
Tolerance.
generations. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, people are going to go through changes in life. And sometimes when they're going through their own shifts and changes, it's also maturing. And
Right.
so there are going to be people who are maybe not, mm, y- y- maybe not where you are, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
you're not where they are, And so for a time, for a season, you may not see eye to eye, but you can still love them where they are. And I think that
Right.
is like the difference here.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
think that being able to accept that there's going to be seasons in every relationship,
Right.
even a marriage between you and your child, like where you're just not seeing the same things. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but you still have love. You still wish one another well. You still, support one another. You still show up.
Absolutely.
You show
You
up
still show up.
on those
Right.
important days.
Right.
And
Right. Right. And you respect them, and you respect where they're at, and you respect. I'm the type of person where I meet people where they stand, you
absolutely.
know, and I think that's the reason why I might have, been able to have such long friendships so long, because
Mm-hmm.
I think people appreciate that you meet people where they stand, and you respect them for who they are, and you appreciate and value what they bring. And so, yeah, I love my friends, and I love
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I love
And
you too.
so, yep. So,
I love you too. Oh boy. Um, okay. Wow. As you were talking, I got a little emotional because I was just thinking of a day when I was just talking about, just showing up, and I was just thinking of a day that I was having, with my parent. There's been more than one, in fact. When one day I can remember, I couldn't be at the hospital, and I just asked you, can you just go and look at my mom and make sure she's okay? And you did it, and
oh yeah, oh yeah, that's without any words,
I'm
of
I'm
course.
so appreciative of being able to ask you and trusting that you would do it,
Absolutely.
because I
Of
couldn't be there that
course.
day, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And the day
absolutely.
that May 5th,
Yep.
I stopped everything and showed up,
You
because
showed
that's
up.
what friends do.
Yep. And you also, something I remember about that day, the May 5th is the day my father died.
Yep.
I remember you couldn't get there.
Right.
And you called your father.
Yep.
And he was the first one to come on the day my father died. There was no one else there. I was actually sitting on the porch.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, my mother was in the house. She was in the house, but there was no one else. No one had came to the house by then.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting on the porch, like extremely upset because, this is my first parent to pass away. And, I was a daddy's girl.
Yep.
And
same here.
And he showed up and I heard his car door close, and I heard some footsteps coming up the driveway, and I looked up and it was your father. And I was crying, and he just hugged me. And he told me it was going to be all right. So, the day I went to visit him, in the hospital, I went to visit him when he was in the hospital, and I was able to tell him the same thing. So, yeah, you pay it forward, and you appreciate those times.
Yeah. And that's family. That's what family does for one another. And I appreciate you.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're crybabies. Okay.
Yep. As you can see, we're crybabies, and it is what it is. But what did we say about phenomenal women? You're able to share this and vulnerable and wear your emotions on your sleeve.
That's right.
So it's okay.
Yep. So, what are your thoughts on faith, and what is its role in your life?
It's carried me all the way through. It really has. Faith has really carried me all the way through. It's where I went at night when I would lay in bed and think about my cancer diagnosis, what I'm going to do, what I need to do. It wrapped me up like a blanket as I went through this process.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's huge in my life. It's how I'm able to function, every morning when I get up. I have a huge amount of faith. God has been good to me. And I believe that if I just believe and I stay faithful and I stay humble, that things are going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been my mantra really my entire adult life. The way I practice have changed a little bit. It looks different for some people, but faith is huge in my life. And I'll never stray from that. And it's brought me through everything, every challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can certainly understand where you're coming from, especially in terms of how it might look in your life as you go through life and you learn more. And you kind of, at least for me, I can speak for myself. My faith and my spirituality has become more, what's the word? I've cut out a lot of the fluff.
Right.
Right. I recognize exactly what it is, who I am, what to do, how to reach, who I need to reach, and I do that. And it's different for every person, and you just kind of have to find your way. So I always think that's such an important question on this show, how people exercise their faith and, its role. And every single phenomenal woman I've had, they have faith.
Gotta have
they
it.
have faith.
You gotta have it.
And then finally, this is probably a big question given everything that's happening right now today. What do you think COVID-19 is teaching us?
Wow, great question. I'm a really deep person in so many ways. I sit and think about the most deepest things, and when the COVID-19 first started, I thought about that. Um, I think that it's definitely teaching us, and many of the things that's going on in our society now is teaching us to decide to live differently, to live better, to live more. It's also teaching us how precious life is. The most precious people on the planet are the ones that live with you, because the COVID-19 is teaching us to basically be quarantined with family. It's teaching us that the people right there in your house, your children, your husband, are the most important people, and spend time with them. So time stopped. We all had to be still with this COVID-19. And we all had to be in the house together. And I think that was a time and a place for us to really appreciate, our family. I think it also taught us that busyness is a false sense of accomplishment, and I'm guilty. My career keeps me busy running around, and from morning to night sometime. But busyness is a false sense of accomplishment, our overly, busy lives have taught us to dislike times when we're still, right? Like we feel guilty when we're just being still, right? But I think this season has taught me that it's okay to sit still. And I think when we're being still, that we all can learn and listen to what God is trying to tell us. And I think that, I really believe that this COVID-19 made us sit down and listen, and be in the moment with our family, and understand that things are bigger than our little world as well. We're all connected in a sense. Like we were all on the same level during this COVID-19, right? Businesses stopped. And so we were all in the house with our family, with our families. And, I think that we were all on the same level, during this pandemic. So, so those are the things I think that, and again, like I mentioned earlier, time has one direction. I keep saying it moves forward. So we all have to understand we can't get back tomorrow, that we have to be in the moment right now. And there's no guarantee. As much as when I was younger, I didn't understand that. As an adult woman now, I really understand that no one is guaranteed tomorrow. And I have to live my life loving, praying, being in the moment, being vulnerable, joking, laughing, crying, right now, and appreciate all of it, Saran. Appreciate all of it. And, I know I'm going off into something else.
No, that's great. No.
But that, and it's crazy because I had the diagnosis a few months before the COVID-19. So I was quarantined long before you guys were quarantined. I was quarantined in September. Because of the chemo, I would stay away from people, and my immune system was low. So I was in the house, and so this COVID-19 happened, and I'm still in the house. And so to be going through cancer and to have a pandemic break out,
I could sit down and say to myself, Lord, what in the world are you trying to teach me right now? Right. And I did. I really sat down and I really thought to myself, okay, what is he trying to say to me right now? And I came up with those things. Nekel, love now, right now, listen now, right now. And that's where I'm at today.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all of what you said is so right on point, in terms of like when I think about COVID-19 and initially, I thought about the fact that, the obvious that, we are having to sit down, that we're having to, spend time with our family, that we're having to practice gratitude because it can become very frustrating, being in one spot and having to adapt to not moving so much. And also, just for me personally, I am one who I've had a lot on my plate for many years. And so just moving, juggling this, juggling that, juggling this, juggling that. And really having certain responses to life that I just wasn't really dealing with on the surface. And then having to sit down it's actually started before COVID-19, but COVID-19 really kicked it into overdrive where it was enforced. Just really having to slow down and just, wow. Okay, that's how I feel about that. Okay.
Right.
I have to deal with that. I didn't quite finish with that over there. I need to finish that out.
Right.
With just my emotional, maturity about certain things, moving past certain life circumstances, even when it pertains to my own mother, just certain things.
Right.
And then, we're here and without diving into a full political discussion, what I thought about as well is that when my community, I live in a community that is where African Americans are a minority, and my community has a Facebook group where the moms get together and just share information, or it could be anything, posting anything. And so what I saw them post was their commitment, and I may get emotional with this because it really did move me. Their commitment to not raising racist children, their commitment to having the discussions in their households.
Right.
Commitment to, saying, hey, I shared the video about George Floyd with my children, and I wanted them to see it because I want them to know the impact of actions, and I want them to know the impact of hatred. My children not be racist. I shared with them what microaggressions are. I was really impressed because
absolutely.
I was like, wow, here I am, this one person. I don't have to be the the militant one, coming forth like, look, no, it was unsolicited, and it wasn't just, it were hundreds that joined in that conversation and said, hey, wow, thank you for this post. Because I didn't think that, because they were sharing different examples even of what it meant to be racist in a covert way.
Right.
Things that people don't really think about, and they're like, I had to think about that. Thank you for sharing that, because I never saw it that way. But as I thought about it, I see that I'm going to change that. And so I think that then what COVID-19 does is make people sit down and pay attention to what's actually happening and has been happening. It's not, we have our leadership, and yes, the leadership makes the ugliness feel comfortable to be ugly, but the ugliness has been there, right? So it just makes people sit down and pay attention, and it shows there's a spotlight on it. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
nowhere to run, nowhere to hide because we can't go anywhere. But
Right.
here,
Right.
so
Yeah. There's a certain, you mentioned something like this.
mm-hmm.
There's a cleansing that's happening.
Yes.
There's a cleansing that's happening. And like you, we both live in a community where
Mm-hmm.
African Americans are a minority.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of, non-African American friends and
Mm-hmm.
colleagues and
Yeah.
associates. And I was so, I guess, in a sense, relieved and almost surprised when I had shared something about that I would, I'm going to need like all my non-African American friends and associates and colleagues to basically be on the same energy
Mm-hmm.
that I'm on regarding the
Mm-hmm.
public murder of yet another Black human being.
That's correct.
And I got all of these comments, particularly on my other platform, from all my non-African American associates and friends and people reaching out to me. I had someone text me, and I said to myself, I think we're moving into a new time.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're starting to move into a new time period. I really do.
Yeah.
Something that you and I in our lifetime have not seen. Something that our parents didn't have the privilege of seeing. I think we're starting to move in a different time period. And all I can say with that as we move forward and watch is by the grace of God, by the grace of God.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So, yeah.
For sure. One day, I really hope that our children get to just be children and not Black children when they're growing up,
Me too.
because I was just sharing with my husband the other day, yesterday, we were talking about one day when my son, who he's 28 now, but he was 4 maybe at that time. And, the process was starting where, with my father, we were having dinner, and the process is the awareness process,
Right.
So the conversations start at that age, from him, acknowledging certain things that happen in America and how he's seen as a Black man, how he will be seen as a Black man, and how he should navigate his life. And I just was so, antsy about that because I just wanted him he was having his little freedom. I could see he was free, he was 4, he was happy, he had, his friends, and I didn't want him to carry the burden. Well, then there came a time, just a few years later, he was 7, and I picked him up from basketball practice, and he came to the car, and he didn't even, he got in the car, he just broke down. He shuddered, like he was that deep down cry, from the depth of his soul cry. And I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, so-and-so, a little boy on the team called me a nigger.
Wow.
And I just, he'd never heard the term before, but it's just the energy that was behind the word that impacted him,
Right.
And here I am thinking, we're in a different time. I don't want my father to put this burden on him, but the burden wasn't his. He was preparing him.
Right. Exactly.
Preparing him. And unfortunately, it was the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
Because here he was in this situation, So, so anyhow,
yeah,
as we've gone on tangent, but
this is great. I mean, I would, if you ever do a podcast with this, I would love to be part of it. I think it's important, an important topic, particularly for mothers of African American men.
Absolutely.
My son is 24, and I worry about him more on the streets of where we're at now than I did when he was in another country serving our country as a Marine. I worry about him more here at home in his country than I did across seas.
A country he served for. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Protected freedoms. Protected freedoms he's not able to experience wholeheartedly.
Absolutely.
Because he's already starting with a profile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's real. It's a real feeling.
I think America sees that now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that America sees that now.
Yeah.
And like I say, you almost have to have a camera. They have to have a cameraman. If you don't have a cameraman, you can't go out.
Right.
Because have to have that cameraman because you have to be able to see justice. But
right.
Anyways,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just have enjoyed this conversation so much.
Yeah, me too.
And I appreciate you being here and allowing me to share this piece of myself. I have people in my life that, they become surprised when they learn a little bit more about some faction of my life that they don't know anything about. And this is one that I'm really proud to highlight because you've been a big part of my life. You've always been phenomenal, even when we were kids, even when we were very young. You always had a very mature, and I mean that, a very mature. Some people come with certain knowledge, and I really feel that you've always had a spiritual maturity about you that I've always appreciated.
And that's why you need friends like us that you've been around so long.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't remember that. I don't remember anything like that, but you can tell me about me back then. Like you understand what I'm saying? Like
you
need to have friends that you've been friends with so long that can say you were like this or you were like this, because I don't remember those things. So I just honor that. I honor you.
Mm-hmm.
And I honor the memories that we share together. And this has been phenomenal. I just hope that I was able to share some useful things to your listeners, to women, to all my pink sisters out there that are surviving. God bless you. And, again, by the grace of God that I'm here, and I'm just so thankful for this platform. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Have a phenomenal Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in to Power 365 Phenomenal Woman Wednesdays. I believe that every woman gifts the universe with her own strengths and unique characteristics. Simply because she is born, the universe benefits. Every woman is growing, learning, and evolving. On this channel, only positive seeds are sown, no matter how flawed the soil. Take care and have a phenomenal Wednesday. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. The Phenomenal Woman Wednesday podcast can be found on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube.